Hello and welcome to another standard video. Today we are revisiting the Boros Burn archetype, which hasn't lost too much with the rotation, just a Monastery Swiss Spear at 1 mana, but it also picked up some new tools, mainly in the mana base. We finally have Sacred Foundry as a nice dual land, and we also picked up the Nova Hellkite from Edge of Eternities, which can be warped for 2 in a red, so then we get a 4/5 with Flying and Haste that can attack for 4 right away, and when it enters we can also deal 1 damage to target creature an opponent controls. So if our opponent has any 1 toughness creatures, we kind of get to take those out for free, and then later for 5 mana we can replay the Hellkite from exile, once again get 1 damage to an opposing creature, and start attacking for chunks of 4 damage. And then the Nova Hellkite also synergizes quite well with Plasma Bolt, which is a sorcery speed shock dealing 2 damage to any target, but if we enabled Void, aka if a non-land permanent left the battlefield this turn or a spell was warped, it can deal 3 damage instead. So if we have 4 mana available, we can warp the Hellkite and deal 3 with a Plasma Bolt, or what's more likely is that a creature dies and then Plasma Bolt can deal 3 as well, and Fanatical Firebrand can be a great way to enable that as well, as a 1/1 with haste that can also be tapped and sacrificed to deal 1 damage to any target. So this can be a way to enable Void on Plasma Bolt, and can also give us a little bit more creature interaction, thinking of the mono-white life gain decks where they have a lot of 1 toughness creatures that we wouldn't mind controlling so they don't get out of hand. And Firebrand also plays quite well with a Screaming Nemesis, or 3/3 with haste, that when it's dealt damage can redirect that damage. If we target our opponent with that effect, they now cannot gain life for the rest of the game. So if we don't have a burn spell handy to target our own Nemesis, we can also maybe use the Firebrand to deal 1 to it, redirect it to our opponent, and their life gain effects are now shut down, which is going to be very useful against the various mono-white decks, as well as any decks running life gain effects like Sheltered by Ghosts. And then rounding out the deck, of course, the reason we're splashing white is for Boros Charm, which has lots of modes, usually just deals 4 damage to a player or planeswalker, occasionally can make our permanents indestructible against a board wipe, or if we want to protect a key threat, and can also give a creature double strike until end of turn, which might come up if we cast a Slick Shot and enable the ability a few times, because then it might end up at, let's say, a 5/2 after casting Boros Charm, so then going for double strike deals 5 more damage as opposed to just dealing 4 to the opponent directly, so then double strike might be worth it, at least if the coast is clear and we don't risk losing the Slick Shot to removal. So this is another key threat that can deal a lot of damage out of nowhere, can also plot it if we want to play around opposing interaction. And then Lightning Helix, another reason to splash white, as a 3 damage effect that also gains 3 life, so a bit of an upgrade over Lightning Strike, even though sometimes we will have to take 2 damage from our Sacred Foundry to enable the white splash, so then we're not actually gaining a lot of life from the effect, but I think it's still worth it since we also pick up Boros Charm. And then rounding out the 1-drops, we have a Bolt Wave, just 3 damage to the opponent, very efficient, but of course can't target creatures with it, so that's a drawback. Burst Lightning can deal 2 to any target, and also has Kicker to maybe deal 4 damage, so that's definitely an upgrade over Shock, which is another 1 mana burn spell we could be playing, but I'm going for a Plasma Bolt instead. And then Hard Claw is by far the best 1 mana aggressive creature we have left in Standard, so that's making the cut as well. Could also support it even more by adding Rockface Village in the mana base, but Rockface Village is not going to help you cast a Boros Charm or Lightning Helix, so it does have its drawbacks. And now that we're not including the Emberheart Challenger at 2 mana, which can also synergize with a village, it kind of makes sense to just cut it. If you're playing the Challenger, I wouldn't mind including 1 or 2 villages to give you another mana sink. And yeah, that's pretty much the entire deck, so let's jump into some games and see how the deck does. Okay, we're on the play with a keepable hand. Opponent on the white life gain deck. Alright, so we're gonna need help from Screaming Nemesis if we want to win this one. For now, attack with Claw can pump it. Even if they play Pridemate, they won't be able to grow it yet. If they go for Sheltered by Ghosts, I can still pay for it with Plasma Bolt. So that seems like a fine use of our mana. Channeler is fine. And Firebrand's a pretty clean answer to the Channeler. So then I could repeat the same play as last turn, where we now Firebrand, Channeler, attack and pump. Although now things get a bit more complicated, as our opponent could play another Pridemate-like creature and a 1-drop to immediately grow. But then it's still a 3-3 that I can maybe Helix. Plasma Bolt also quite synergistic with the Firebrand, as we can enable Void if we sacrifice it here. But yeah, I think Channeler's gotta go. Could have also gone Plasma Bolt plus Bolt Wave, but I need to extract more damage out of my creatures since I'm not going to have enough burn in hand, especially against a life gain deck. Alright, so time to deploy some 1-drops. Alright, they had Bat into another Channeler. And another Firebrand, actually a useful draw. So Firebrand can clear the Bat, so they can put a +1 counter on it and make a 2-powered lifelinker. Then the question is, do I take out the Channeler, or do we just try to burn them out from here? Taking out Channeler also does double duty of kind of preventing Vanguard from gaining more life, so that's probably still worthwhile. So let's go for it. And then I can once again pump the Hard Claw. And then we have 6 points of burn in hand. Yeah, we'll see how this plays out. Now a Sheltered by Ghosts on Vanguard could be more effective. So I could keep Helix up. Bonus at 10. If I get to untap, they would have to chump to survive, whereas if I let them play Sheltered by Ghosts, things might get ugly as our opponent gains 3, and then we lose all the counters. So I'll play around Sheltered, not sure if it's correct, but they haven't had a great opportunity to cast it yet. Exemplar of Light doesn't trigger yet, so that's fine, might have to chump. And Vanguard's gonna stay back. Alright, so what happens if I untap, attack, opponent falls to 9. If they double block, we kind of blow them out by just removing 1 creature. If they take it, then they would take another 3, so then they're at 6, and we just burn them out. So I don't think I need to Helix end of turn. Go to attackers. They might just jump with the Vanguard, and then I can just keep up Helix for the Exemplar. Opponent's gonna take it, so then they should just be dead. Alright, so got lucky to draw all those Firebrands to play a control role against a life gain deck, because once they get life gain synergies rolling, it's pretty hard to stop them. But it also shows the importance of Firebrand as a 1-drop over the Grease Wrench Goblin, which some of the other burn decks are playing. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Hand's okay. Pretty action-packed. Could use an extra creature. Opponent blue-white. So is it control? Is it the artifact deck? Looks like Esper control. So not our favorite matchup. At least if we keep drawing burn spells, they can't leverage their creature removal. Stock up, so this is a good window for Hellkite to connect. And then I do think I want to Boros Charm now too, since we can reduce their life total, so if they play the 4 mana mill effect, they don't get to mill us for quite as much. And then the Firebrand is also a good way to enable Void on Plasma Bolts. So got our opponent to 12. We have 6, 7, 8, 9 points of burn in hand, sort of. I was going to stock up again, alright. So if I can draw another 3 damage effect. Opponent surveils. And opponent lets go of split up, so they've got ample answers to creatures in hand. But yeah, I think I make use of my Plasma Bolt while I can. And then next turn I could kick a Burst Lightning, potentially. So then our opponent's had a virtual 1 life between Helix and kick Burst Lightning. They also have to respect the Hellkite, so they likely keep up creature removal. They finally play out a Monument to try mill us. If they counter Helix, they're not countering or removing the Hellkite. But yeah, there's no shot that the Hellkite survives here, so I'm not even gonna try. But we drew a Firebrand, so that's good. And do we play kick Burst Lightning if our opponent goes to mill with Monument end of turn? They could still have a 2-mana counter. Ooh, never mind. Cease can gain them 2 life. That's relevant. Alright, that was unexpected. So now it may not be quite as easy. But I will take the opportunity to deal 4. So they're still within range of a 3 damage effect. So yeah, Hellkite is not gonna work. If I play it and they remove it, we also lose kind of the threat of a Hellkite. So then our opponent's more freely gonna be tapping out. So I don't think that's where I want to be. But I can play a Firebrand and then just pass. No point in attacking, because then it's gonna get removed. I mean, I could try the Hellkite. They would need instant speed removal. Get Lost gives me some map tokens. If it's some other removal... Yeah, close call. Maybe I should just go for it here. Right, opponent was forced to use a hard counter. So that's not bad for us. So now the Firebrand could attack if I'd like. So then they still need to potentially spend mana removing it. They can likely just wipe the board, mill half of my deck, which sets up lethal with Monument, but then we can top deck any haste creature or burn spell to win the game. So this is my top deck for the win. And Boros Charm delivers. Awesome. Because yeah, otherwise next turn exhaust Monuments, gets the job done. And yeah, unless I have a burn spell in hand I can cast in my upkeep, our opponent would win the game instead. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with Keeper. Got a 1-2-3 curve up against what looks like blue-white control. So this one could be tough. Looks like the artifact deck instead. Alright, so at least we get to resolve our spells, but the opponent can also end the game very quickly if they get a synthesizer going. This is just a pure race here. For now, 4 damage to my opponents. Play Nemesis, although repurposing Bay next turn could also get a net to keep the Nemesis locked down. But yeah, I think Nemesis still makes sense. Could also use the Firebrand on the Nemesis, I suppose, prevent him from gaining further life with Clayfired Bricks. It's not that they're gaining a ton of life with it, to be honest. So maybe I'm fine just attacking for now. If they get a way to exile the Nemesis, would I regret losing the Firebrand? Yeah, you know what, maybe I will actually set this up. So no more life gain. Opponent's at 12. So we've got 6 plus 4 is 10. Opponent did have a snare to answer Nemesis, not too surprising. So I probably gotta get in with a Hellkite while I can. And then next turn I can maybe just cast the Hellkite once again for another 4 damage. So our opponent might then get the net to tap the haste creature down. But that buys us more time to draw a different burn spell. I think I still Bolt Wave, that way if I draw some 2-mana burn spell, I can cast it alongside Lightning Helix, although I guess we could have done that regardless. But maybe I'll draw another Nemesis, who knows. So our opponent needs to get their win condition going, while having interaction for our game plan as well. So Synthesizer, can they follow that up with a net? If they have, I guess, the Saw Blades, that could have dealt 5 as well. But luckily we drew another burn spell, so we should just have it here. Can maybe still play around a counter spell by waiting until they tap out. Although it is suspicious that we didn't try to play the Hellkite. Another Synthesizer, no blue mana available, so can go for it now. Overall, this matchup is definitely winnable for the Boros Burn deck if you've got a reasonable draw. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Don't love this hand. Triple Helix with 1 white source, so won't be able to cast them in the same turn with a Slickshot out. Only have 1 creature, no 1-drop. So this hand's pretty awkward in a number of ways, but at the same time it might still be a keep. On the draw we might also find a 1-mana play. Alright, Gorehound, so it's a self-mill kind of graveyard deck. So don't expect a lot of removal, but they could provide some chum blockers, even flyers for the Slickshot. And they're also going to have some life gain. Servondam might be worth removing before it removes the Slickshots. Found Plasma Bolt. Alright, so now Slickshot becomes a little bit more appealing, since we can maybe next turn Helix plus Plasma Bolt. And I think I'm still fine to just attack for 1 here. Take 3. And there's Sephiroth. Alright, maybe sacking the Gorehound, growing Servondam. And Sephiroth can also gain life. So this is probably a more controlling turn, where I can Helix Servondam, and then Plasma Bolt is enabled. So then I can also deal with Sephiroth. And yeah, I have to do it this way, otherwise Servondam grows, but of course I do get the extra Sephiroth trigger. But that's the cost of doing business. At least the Slickshot gets in for a healthy amount. So yeah, hoping they don't have a Race the Past, because otherwise they get to return those creatures right away. Opponent's still at 17, so yeah, we've got a long way to go. This is definitely the matchup where we would like Screaming Nemesis to shut down their life gain. Infestation Sage can make a flying blocker. Voice of Victory, also good with Sephiroth, although now Nova Hellkite. Although it's a little awkward here, in that if I take out the Sage, they can then chump my flyer with a 1/1. So maybe this is still a double Lightning Helix turn. Question is, do we Helix the Voice, or do we just go face? Because Voice by itself is not a huge concern. Voice plus Gorehound or another Sephiroth could be more problematic. And of course, if we take out the Voice, then we're also enabling their Race the Past. Could always warp Hellkite and then just deal 1 to the voice, don't have to take out the Sage. So lots to consider. Don't love using double Helix and not having an answer to another Sephiroth if that shows up. But if I want to keep up Helix, I can't warp Hellkite either. If I do double Helix, we're hitting for 5 plus 6 is 11. Yeah, maybe that's still the play. And I guess I can't even keep up Helix if we're not taking out Voice, because we cannot play Instance in the opponent's turn. So that also contributes. So our opponent's at 6. So next turn I can either warp or cast the Hellkite, doesn't matter. So then if we draw another cheap burn spell, we can maybe cross the finish line. Opponent just playing another 1-1. Attacks for 4. So this is a race we can win. Ooh, they had another Sephiroth. Alright, things might get ugly now. Sephiroth will trigger off the warrior tokens, getting them more life. I can at least shoot down the insect. Alright, so we'll just cast the Hellkite. Attack you for 5, and then hope to top deck. Because as it stands, our opponent's going to gain some life back. And there's Erase the Past. Alright, at least they don't have a Sacrifice outlet in play. Although I guess they can use Sephiroth to sacrifice 1 creature. But Servon Dam wouldn't be able to take out anything just yet, because the warriors only die end of turn. They can sack the Sage to make another 1-1 blocker. And yeah, the Hellkite only triggers when it enters. So then I might have been better off warping the Hellkite instead of casting it. So we're going to be at 5 here. And that's a land, so yeah, that's not going to do it, unfortunately. Had we warped the Hellkite last turn, sure, I cleared the insect, but our opponent gains another life, so we're nowhere close to presenting lethal. Alright, GG's. Just ended up flooding a little bit. But yeah, that's the tricky balance against a Sacrifice deck. If you remove their creatures, you kind of play into the Raise the Past plan. If you don't remove them, then if they find a Sacrifice outlet especially, their synergies can take over. So now with the Blood Witch, we're ultra dead. And there's the Zealot as a cherry on top. So yeah, I think we really need the Nemesis in this matchup to have a chance, because our opponents ended up gaining a lot of life off Sephiroth as well. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. We have a keepable hand. Turn 1 Firebrand, turn 2 either cast or plot Slick Shots. And then we've got a few burn spells to enable it. Opponent with a turn 1 Elves. Well, you usually want to bolt the bird or take out the Elves, and we've got an answer on the board. So then I can still afford to play the Slick Shots. Fine to just cast it to get 1 damage in. unlikely to have it removed. Although they could technically play some cheap creature and a fight spell, but it would have to be at least 2 power. And now we get to unleash our burn spells while the coast is clear. And then warping the Hellkite is at least another 4 damage next turn. Even if they play a Hydra, it's gonna start out as a 1-1, so it'd still die to the 1 damage. So, can't think of too much that can go wrong here. Opponent's got a Bristly Bill. Alright, so we get to warp the Hellkite, and then an attack for 4 will do it. Sweet, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw. Our hands, not exciting, but keepable. Don't want to draw too many more lanes. Could use an extra creature to apply pressure with. Alright, go for a Hard Claw facing Bivouac, so could be a more controlling red deck, maybe red-white tokens. Nope, still see a Challenger. So we can take it. And then a couple options here. I think I do want to just Helix the Challenger as opposed to going Firebrand plus Bolt, which is also reasonable. But I want to kind of make use of the white mana, which could be a limiting factor otherwise. Firebrand also good at enabling Void for Plasma Bolts. Opponent's got another Challenger. Playing defense, maybe not the best plan, because we can just pump the Hard Claw, so our opponent attacks, draw Burst Lightning. So now I'm kind of liking just Burst Lightning the Challenger, play double Firebrand. Or we can pump the Hard Claw. Double Firebrand is a little bit more damage. Pumping Hard Claw gets it out of range from a 2 damage effect. So it does have its advantages as well. Yeah, maybe we still pump Hard Claw here. That way if I draw land next turn, I can still play double Firebrand, pump Hard Claw to maximize our mana. Alright, opponent is running the Scavenger. So that's also a good target for Firebrand. So, can play Firebrand, attack with Claw. And I guess just take out the Scavenger now. Don't feel the need to Plasma Bolt the Swordmaster. Although, if I just pump and then next turn they play Sheltered by Ghosts, I could get punished. So I do think I keep up Lightning Helix at the very least, and then if I don't need to use it, I can Boros Charm. Could get myself in trouble if they have Sheltered plus Shard Mage's Rescue, which is entirely possible given that they have missed a few line drops. But I think that's a risk I'm willing to take. Alright, a land, but it's a Rockface Village, although they could still go Sheltered plus Shard Mage's Rescue. Just gonna be a Mabel for now. So fine target for Lightning Helix. Although we're getting close to burning the opponent out, if I Boros Charm them to 8, next turn Firebrand 7, 6, and then Plasma Bolt would be enabled. So I guess I have a lethal if I draw land. But this also kind of supposes that they're chumping with Mabel, otherwise I can just pump the Hard Claw. So I do think I actually just Boros Charm here instead of using the Helix. Alright, so go ahead and attack. See if they're willing to chump. Right now I can deal 6 if I go Firebrand, Bolt, Burst Lightning. Although I guess if they block with Mabel on Hard Claw, Bolt is enabled regardless. opponent takes it, so that should make it easy. Just Helix plus Burst Lightning. And there we go, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. Our hand seems keepable. Lots of removal. And then Hellkite as a way to deal damage, and eventually if we end up flooding a bit, giving us another threat. Not in a hurry to Burst Lightning. Turn 2, Deep Cavern Bat. It's been a while. Feels like that card's fallen off. So it doesn't matter if I Burst Lightning now or wait for it to take a card. In fact, I can just warp the Hellkites if they don't take it, so I kind of force them to. Now I could still use Firebrand to finish off the Deep Cavern Bat. So, is that better? Get my Hellkite back. Could warp it to get in 4 damage. And then keep the Burst Lightnings. Our opponent likely playing the Slasher, which, yeah, could be an issue. So then jumping with Firebrand can maybe save us more time. Yeah, let's just Burst Lightning here. Fine, a Plasma Bolt also plays well with Firebrand and Hellkite, but it seems pretty efficient to just warp here. And then they can take the Hellkite with another bat. And then if I decide to sack Firebrand, Bolt can deal 3 that turn. Alright, opponent's got the Revenant, also a good one. Although now Screaming Nemesis to the rescue. So, I can play Nemesis. Firebrand deals 1 to it to redirect to my opponent, and then attack for 3. If they trade, I still get to deal 3 on the way out, but they don't get to gain any life. So I guess I don't have to Firebrand first, I can see if they want to block. But yeah, I imagine using Firebrand is going to be the play. Alright, opponent doesn't block, so still happy to make this play before they untap and can possibly remove the Nemesis. So opponent's at 10, no life gain allowed. And with our opponent at 10, we've got lots of burn in hand already, although Slasher can still threaten lethal with a Bloodletter combo especially. Don't know if Revenant wants to get in there, it does. So the Nemesis is guaranteed to deal at least 2 damage, opponent at 8. Then, assuming they blocked with a Slasher, Plasma Bolt's also enabled, so that's 3 plus another 4. So it's not quite lethal, but it makes it so that our opponents cannot present lethal themselves, and then we should be able to burn them out after. If they take 3, then Boros Charm plus Bolt is going to be 1 short. So, actually kind of a tricky spot. What if I stay back, they play Bloodletter, then I have a blocker so I don't die, or I can just keep up my instance and maybe double Burst Lightning the Bloodletter as opposed to the Slasher. So I think we're still fine to attack here. Opponent does take the trade, so that happens. Could also Boros Charm make Nemesis indestructible for what it's worth. But yeah, with our opponent at 8, we should be able to close it out. May as well Plasma Bolt while Void is enabled. And then our opponent's at a virtual 1 life with Boros Charm or Double Burst. And turn after they should be dead. Yeah, if it weren't for Screaming Nemesis, the Revenant can maybe threaten to take over. There's still a chance they play another hand disruption spell, but they would need 2 of them. Then of turn Boros Charm. Opponent knows about it, so I'm not sure what they can do to survive. And then just Burst Lightning put them out of their misery. Alright, on to the next one. Okay, we're on the play. It looks like a mono-red deck, but a fine hand. Turn 1 Claw, can maybe pump it turn 2, which is a good use of our mana. But it might get zapped. No, opponent plays Demonic Ruckus. And that's where Plasma Bolt, being a sorcery, has its drawbacks, as we can't punish the opponent for playing a creature and enchanting it. But I'll still make use of the opportunity to pump the Claw. And then best case scenario, opponent presents a 1 toughness creature we get to take out. It's going to be Challenger without the Ruckus on it. So I can Plasma Bolt it and then still pump Hard Claw. That looks good. Even though we're the aggressor so far in the matchup, my hand's pretty action light, so I'm afraid that our opponent can take over, especially if Sheltered by Ghosts is involved, which can easily swing the race in their favor. Now they are going for Ruckus. Maybe they're missing a land drop and they're hoping to find one, which they did. Alright, so that's a lot of damage coming our way. Opponent debating if they want to maybe play another pump spell or plot another Ruckus. Take 4. Alright, so I don't have an answer to Sheltered by Ghosts, so I should just play as if they don't have it. So Hellkite attack, that's hitting for 8. Opponent's at 5. And then I should just Bolt Wave so I can cast Hellkite for the win potentially. But yeah, Sheltered by Ghosts is going to be ugly. Alright, cross our fingers. No Sheltered. They might still be able to win without it if they give Challenger double strike with Manifold Mouse. And they found another Plains. Feather of Flight, okay. So yeah, Manifold Mouse would be 14 damage here. But they also had the Sheltered by Ghosts, alright, so the slow roll. Maybe they drew into it with a Feather of Flight. So yeah, now we're super dead. Also ended up flooding a bit. But yeah, these matchups usually boil down to whether or not the Aura deck draws Sheltered by Ghosts. And since they have Demonic Ruckus for Menace, it's not like I can hang back to block. So we are just dead. GG's. And there's a Scavenger, would have been a fine target for Hellkite. Had things lined up slightly differently. And in Natali's favor. Can get some more +1 counters. Opponents maybe completing their daily quests to cast more white or red spells. And hits the Slumbering Keep Guard. On to the next one. Okay, we're on the draw with a keepable hand. No 1-drop, but some good burn spells and a Nemesis can go a long way. Facing the Rabbit deck, presumably. Alright, Firebrand was a good pickup. So I can play it. Likely taking out Mightcaller no matter what happens, so may as well do it now. On the off chance that they can grow it at instant speed or protect it. Opponent's got a Quest Caller, which is a fine target for Lightning Helix since it's probably going to output more damage than we can deal in the meantime. And then once again, may as well just main phase. And then hopefully next turn we can apply pressure with a Nemesis. And we can go back to back Screaming Nemesis. Opponent's gonna take it, attack back, gain 2. Can maybe find a window to prevent them from gaining life. Although Helix is not the ideal solution for that. So they drew into Mightcaller with Innocence. Draw Bolt Wave. So what's the play here? Could just jam double Nemesis, but maybe you want to keep one back. And then hope they don't have like a Shelter by Ghosts. Yeah, that seems reasonable. Could also Helix my own Nemesis. Prevent them from gaining life. I can redirect 3 elsewhere. Could even make my Nemesis indestructible in that process. But yeah, I think just playing one on defense is fine. Could hang on to Bolt Wave, since we're not necessarily winning the game next turn. Although maybe mana efficiency still matters. Like, we have 6 on the board, plus 7 in hand, so maybe we can end it next turn. Quest Caller pumps a team. Draws off Innocence. And they had the Shelter by Ghosts, so yeah, that's how things can maybe snowball. Even though I can get my Nemesis back, they now got to gain 5. So I pretty much have to Helix the Mightcaller and then cross my fingers that they can do it again. Do I leave both copies of Nemesis back? That feels pretty weak. But if they just play another Sheltered, we're pretty much dead. But I also don't want to lose to other stuff. Another Mightcaller draws a card. And the War Leader is pretty good here. Opponent sends in a couple bunnies. Can pump those up. So 9 damage coming my way. I can block, redirect 3 to my opponent. They're at 11. And then what am I hoping to top deck? I've got Boros Charm putting them to 7. An attack from Nemesis. Or opponent could technically chump with a 2-powered creature to only take 2. So then, yeah, even another Boros Charm wouldn't necessarily do it. If I block a 3/3 redirect to the Quest Caller, I get to shrink their team down. I still take 6 down to 5. But Boros Charm doesn't really target creatures here, so it doesn't help me play the control role. So tough spot. Yeah, what makes sense. If I shrink down the team with Quest Caller dying, we're still facing lethal next turn. So I might have to go upstairs and then just hope for a good top deck. So I have 7 in hand, 3 in play. And that's still going to be a little bit short. But maybe our opponent respects double Boros Charm. And therefore makes a weird block. And there's no way I survive an attack here. Ooh, opponent blocking with War Leader would be a mistake. So opponent's double blocking, so that's 7 going their way. And yeah, they can't gain any life because Nemesis is already applied. So yeah, that's why we played out. Doesn't matter what we finish off. Yeah, double blocking Nemesis was probably not the play. Alright, so we get to see this Boros Burn deck in action, and there's definitely a few ways to configure the deck, whether or not you play the Grease Ranch Goblin or Fanatical Firebrand, whether or not you include the Emberheart Challenger at 2 mana, now that you don't have any ways to really target it, now that Monstrous Rage is gone. So yeah, couple flex slots for sure, but I've been happy with the Firebrand as a way to maybe give you a bit more interaction in certain matchups. It's pretty decent in the mirror match as a way to soak up an attack from Screaming Nemesis, and it can also prevent the opponent from gaining life by targeting your own Screaming Nemesis if you draw both. So I've been pretty happy with the Firebrand, and then the Hellkite also seems like a solid addition, and if you're playing both, then playing the new Void Burn spell also makes a lot of sense, as you're more likely to get 3 damage out of it, even though it is a sorcery. So yeah, that's going to do it for today's gameplay. Want to thank you for watching, hope you enjoyed, and as always, have a nice day.